All right, Big Mag, today is Thursday. It is August 15th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Here in studio with my guest. My guest is Mark Blutman. He is the father to Liam and Luke, two of our guys on our social team here. And he is also a writer for TV.
For TV, yeah, movies a little bit too. I've done a few of those, but mostly TV. I'm known for, I've been doing it about 30 years now. You know.
Before we get rolling, I want to talk about my friends at Game Time, the official ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. I just pulled up the Game Time app right now. Let's see. I know Creed. Creed is at Tinley Park. That's right, Creed. Hold Me Now, 6 feet from the everything. Lowest $73. Go see Creed. Go see Creed tomorrow. It'll be a great time. And don't wait for it. Don't wait for it. Go get those tickets. But if you don't, and you want to go last second, they have the flash deals for sudden discounts. They got zone deals for when you're feeling flexible. And they got the lowest price guarantee, which means that you can find the same seats for less anywhere else. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So I don't know what you're waiting for. Go grab those Creed tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code DOGWALK for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Go do it. Game Time's great. You want to go see Creed, and just go see the rest of their events on the app. All right, let's get back into the show. Okay, so how'd you get into it?
How'd I get into writing or the business? I mean, you got 3-4 hours because it's a story. I mean,
because to me, this is one of the coolest jobs.
You know, it's like any other job. To the outside, it looks pretty cool. And then there's, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, But for me, I started at 19 years old as a stand-up comic.
Okay.
And an actor.
Wow.
And, my journey was, that was the path that led me to L.A. I moved to L.A. when I was 21. But yeah, I started comedy at 19 years old in Montreal, Canada. And I was acting, and I started getting parts. At the time, there was an incentive to shoot films in Canada because, first of all, the Canadian dollar, you come in with, $1 million American, that's 1.3. So budgets were able to inflate based on the dollar. So they shot a lot of movies. I found myself starring at like 21 years old in movie Meatballs 3 with Patrick Dempsey.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. So, I'm doing that, and I'm, did a movie called The Morning Man, and I was on the soap opera All My Children, and I'm like going, oh my gosh, what a life. Like, I'm in my early 20s. I'm acting. I'm in these big, and Patrick Dempsey was on the verge of becoming a star. And I went, this is amazing. And then I went to the premiere of Meatballs 3 with my brother, and, I come on, I'm in the first scene of the movie, and we're at the premiere, giant screen, and I start watching myself talk. And every time I opened my mouth, I started slinking deeper and deeper into my chair. And almost on the floor, I look up to my brother, and I go, how bad do I suck? And he goes, you suck pretty bad.
Oh, no.
And so it's like you're starting to be self-aware, and one of my closest friends for 40 years is Howie Mandel, and so he's a superstar. He's starring on a show called St. Elsewhere. He's in Vegas at the time opening for Diana Ross, and I'm like self-aware enough to go, I'm not that good. Like, he's great. And I didn't have the hunger to, that lifestyle of being on the road as a comic. And, it's kind of cool in your 20s. You're being paid to fly. Comedy was huge in the 80s, and I'm being paid and flown to all these cool cities. And I'm in Nashville, and I'm in Missouri, and I'm in Colorado. I'm headlining all these clubs. But again, I go, ultimately, I'm not that great. I want a wife. I want kids. I knew I wanted a Liam and a Luke.
Yeah. And
I go, I got to pivot. And so it was probably, I was about 30, 31 years old. And, friends had said, you should be a writer because your stand-up act is so like just a lot of improv. And I'm just quick mind, and I'm making stuff up as I go. And they go, you should be a writer. And I go, how do you become a writer in Hollywood? I'm here in LA. I've been there 10 years. And one night, this is true, just one night I woke up at like 5 a.m. and I dreamt this amazing story. and I had a title for it and everything. It was called 10 Wishes, and it was a fantasy movie, kind of like a, you know, the vibes of like Big and that kind of thing. And Howie Mandel, who I mentioned earlier, was in North Carolina filming a movie called Little Monsters with Fred Savage.
Yep.
And I called Howie up and I said, dude, I just dreamt this story. And he goes, tell me it. And basically the story is, remember when you were a kid, you would make wishes on your birthday, right? You know, you'd blow out your candles, make a wish. And wishes are something you maybe hoped for, but in the back of your mind, you know it's not going to come true. It's a wish. And so the premise of the movie was, imagine if all the wishes you made as a kid started to come true as an adult. So we got this character, his character's name was Chaz, and he was turning 30, and he had a fiance, and his fiance's like, you got to get your life together. You're always making these practical jokes. You're such a goofball, but I want a commitment, and I want you to take your job seriously, and I want to build a future. He's like, yeah. So he's determined to get his life together. Anyway, the beginning of the movie, he's on vacation with his fiance, and in a beautiful underwater proposal, they're like scuba diving, and he motions her to this treasure chest, and she cranks the handle, it opens up, and balloons come floating out with a ring attached to a string, and he gives it to her, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's so lovely. And above the water, there's a party yacht. And on the yacht are just a bunch of adults just drinking and dancing, having a good time. And there's a little toddler in like a baby seat on the side of the boat. And it is able to unbuckle the straps, ends up falling in the water. And our hero sees these little legs bobbing, and he ends up swimming up and saving this baby's life. So because of saving this baby's life, he's granted 10 wishes. He doesn't know it. So all these cool things are happening. He takes a client to a baseball game, and he disappears to go get hot dogs, and he ends up on the field making this incredible catch in center field to beat the Yankees. And it's all like weird. And then, you know, he's out proposing, he's meeting. I haven't talked about this movie in forever, but it's a cool story. He's meeting the parents of his fiance, and they're in this fancy restaurant, and all of a sudden this hot chick with big breasts comes up to him and goes, hey, Chaz, feel me up, you know, you want to. And the in-laws, future in-laws are like disgusted. And so all these weird things are happening. And there's a fire truck parked in his driveway, and he has no idea what's going on. Then one day, knock at the door, he opens the door, and it's his grandfather who died when he was 12. And his grandfather was his best friend. And so now he figures out what's going on. Oh my gosh, when I was 12, I wish you would come back, and here you are with me, Gramps. This is so amazing. So Chaz and his Gramps, more fun things, are having a good time. More wishes are coming true. He could fly. He can do all these cool things. He's got one wish left, and he can't remember what it was, and it flashes back to his 12th birthday party, or 13th, or whatever. And it's at an amusement park, and him and his brother are in this big fight. And they're just going at it, and they hate each other, and they're just going back and forth. And mother comes out and throws the cake on the table and says, just blow out your candles and make a damn wish. And he looks at his brother, looks down at the cake, blows out the candles, cuts back to the present. He remembered his last wish. He wished his brother was dead. And so now him and his grandfather have to undo the wish, and the way they have to do it is they have to gather all the people who were there when they were 13, who are now adults living all over the world, and they have to come to the birthday party, undo the wish. Anyway, that's the short pitch of it, and I tell it to Howie. He goes, this is the greatest story I've ever heard. This is a great movie. He goes, I'll call you back in 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, the phone rings. It's the producers of the movie, Andy Lick, Jeff Miller. Howie says, tell them the story. I tell them the story. They buy it on the phone. They go, sold.
Without it being written on anything.
Not written. So it was just a pitch. And so they ended up paying me to write it. They had a deal at 20th Century Fox. That's where their deal was. So Fox footed the bill. I sold the script. It was in Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, got an agent off of it. And my career just, went from there. Now, the movie never got made, but it was in what they call development for 20 years actively going from studio to studio. One studio, 20th would shelve it. Paramount would come in and buy it from them. Everybody wanted to make it. Nobody could find the right actor at the time or the right director. Howie and I still talk about it to this day about making that movie because it's such a cool story. But, you know, for me, that was the beginning. I mean, and the career just went from there.
Wow. So you have a movie that's in developmental hell, as they would say.
That one, yeah. And I've you know, I have another movie I wrote and directed called Doubting Thomas. Actually released a spy school that starred when she was one of the hottest child actors, young actors, Anna Sophia Robb. Mm-hmm. And then who else was in that movie? Leah Thompson, Ryder Strong from Boy Meets World, Mitch Rouse, D.L. Hughley, Brian Posehn, great cast. So I have a movie that I'm directing in September. So I would say 20% of my career is movies, but mostly TV.
Mostly TV.
Yeah.
And we'll get into it. But
yeah, for
predominantly sure. Boy Meets World was your...
Well, Boy Meets World, Michael Jacobs created it. I was brought on in year 2, worked on it for 5 years, ran the show in seasons 4 and 5. And that's the one that, you know, we did Girl Meets World years later, which was actually nominated for 3 Emmys on that show. But Boy Meets World is the one that people just want to talk about forever.
Yeah. Rightfully so. It's a great show.
It's never gone away. I mean, you know, one of the political dudes was talking about the, you know, Kamala Harris Walls ticket, and he made a Mr. Feeney reference. And I'm like, this is never not in the zeitgeist. The show is just, and it's one of the only shows, I think I mentioned this to you off the air, but it's one of the only shows that has never not been available. It's always been on some platform, whether it's in reruns, whether it's Disney Channel or ABC Family or MTV. Now it streams on, you know, Disney Plus. So here we are 25 years later since we've made a new episode, and it's still hugely popular.
Yeah, it's been relevant ever since.
Yeah, it's all crazy. People, like, I've done so much since, but all people want to talk about is Boy Meets World. And I accept it. I'm like, I'm glad I have that show.
Yeah.
It's like how the writers of, you know, Friends feel. Like, if people just want to talk about Friends, even if they've done other stuff, cool.
Sure.
I think it's really cool. And, you know, I'll embrace it, man.
It's fucking hard to make a hit. So if you make a hit, there's no reason to shy away from that, I think.
Yeah, fact. And what was so cool, too, when we were a hit, you know, 24 million people were watching an episode of Boy Meets World on a Friday night. Now, if a show gets 4 million views, it's a hit.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much alternative now with streaming and everything else. But yeah, it was huge. And there was no internet in the 90s, really. It, you know, came towards the mid to late 90s. So we didn't know how much we were affecting the lives of young kids. And it was when we did Girl Meets World in 2015-ish. We did that for 3 years. People would email and tag us and posts and reach out to us and just saying, you know, I'm a 35-year-old mom or I'm a 40-year-old dad, and this one episode of Boy Meets World affected my life. You know, so it's pretty heartwarming. And, you know, they use the word legacy. You know, what's my legacy? Well, for me, it's Liam, Luke, and the body of work I've done, mostly Boy Meets World. So yeah, I'm down with that.
Yeah, the nostalgia factor of how much these shows mean to kids when they're growing up is really priceless, you know?
And they've lost it. The execs now don't want to tap into that as readily.
Which is crazy.
So sad.
I'll still get like Rico Bosco sending me clips from their Wonder Years. And,
yeah.
You know, I'm like, how you feeling, Bosco? And he'll just send me a YouTube clip of...
Shout out Rico, because when Liam started working here, he reached out to me and asked me an Eric Matthews question.
Of course he did.
And I love it. And he's been awesome. And him and Liam traveled together to Albuquerque, and he was so cool to Liam. And so I have appreciation for him.
Yeah, no, so do I. So back to 10 Wishes for a second, though. So what year was this about?
90.
90.
Yeah.
Well, this is 90.
Yeah.
And when they buy that from you, so did you instantly bang out like a 120-page script, or did you bang out a spec script, or how did that work?
Yeah, well, ostensibly is, I mean, it kind of is still a spec script, because even though the producers are paying me X amount against the purchase price, if Fox says yes, I still have to execute a good script.
Yeah.
And
can you explain what a spec script is for people that don't know?
A spec script is something that you're just writing on spec. You're not getting paid to do it. And then you want to have an agent or a manager bring it to marketplace and hopefully have studios bid on it. So anytime you're, really only being paid, a small amount, the word option is used too. So an option, they can pay you $5,000, $10,000, whatever, for the rights 6 months to a year. And then hopefully the script, which you're still writing on spec, a studio will think it's good enough to then purchase it for big money.
Gotcha.
So they paid me, the producers who had the deal at Fox paid me X amount for the option. They owned it for a year. I took about 2 months to write it. They brought it to Fox. Fox then purchased it for the bigger bucks.
Okay. Now, was this like life-changing money, or just like, hey, I have a job, or I don't know what you're comfortable sharing, but
I'll share anything. I mean, the money was crazy for me at just turning 30. And for the first thing I ever wrote, it was like crazy. I think it was around $150K.
Okay.
Something like that.
And that's when Fox bought it, though.
That's when Fox bought it. And, it's funny, though, so you say, was it life-changing? It was life-changing in that I was now a writer and I knew I can have a career. It got me a literary agent, and it led to my first TV job. Looking back, and I read the script recently, and that's when Howie and I started talking about bringing it back, because after 30 years, it reverts back to me. So I now have it.
Oh,
but like years ago, 5-10 years ago, I couldn't do anything with it. But now I have it again.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So, but in reading it, it sucks. Absolutely sucks. Like with that story, that's such a strong story. If I sat down and penned it today, it would take me maybe 3 weeks. Be a hit. I just haven't had the time. I have a new show in development at Disney, and I have that other movie I mentioned, Dare to Dream, that I'm directing in the fall. But I will get back to 10 Wishes. It's like, what they say in relationships, right? You never forget your first.
Yeah.
So
you got to get this made.
I will get it.
Yeah. That'd be phenomenal.
Yeah. But life-changing for sure, because it led to everything that,
Yeah, because it's kind of like the way I understand it, as you could tell, I've done some research into this. This is one of those things where it's like when I was trying like so hard to get my foot in the door at Barstool, I was like, man, I would love to do that too. Like this, one of the careers that I've always looked at and been like, I would love to do that at some point in my life.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing, right? With writing, like you need the agent to get in, or you need to be in the union. Isn't it weird like that? Or
so that's a great question. That's the question I get asked the most. I speak at a lot of different things, and I mentor a lot of young writers, and that's, Mark, tell us your story. And I tell it. And I've left out half of it because we don't have 3-4 hours. The first thing I ever did was me and a buddy in Montreal, where I grew up. We scammed an interview with Saturday Night Live in 1977. They flew us to New York to interview for the writing staff. Another story for later. But, it's like anything else. No, there's no rules. There's no one way to make it. So what I tell young writers all the time is, I could tell you my story, but you can't emulate it. And if I speak to a room of 100 young people who want to come to LA and be a writer or an actor or a musician, whatever, I said, I'm going to tell you my story. And in 10 years from now, if we get together again and 10 of you have made it and you share your stories, all 10 stories will be different and have nothing in common with my story. That's the thing. The way I made it was, first of all, some people like to call it, they're, white privilege, all that. It was privilege in that I had a network of friends. I've been friends with Howie since 1979. Mm-hmm. And so, relationships help, but it helps in any business. There's going to be kids coming out of law school that may end up at a firm because they know somebody who knows somebody.
And at the end of the day, I'm sure Howie has a lot of friends, and there's not every one of his friends in his life would he have answered that call and put them on the phone with the execs. That's not how it works.
And you have to, you got to bring your game too.
Yeah.
You got to bring your game. And so, but it's, the biggest thing again, is do you need the agent? Yeah, but how do you get an agent if you don't sell something? So I got lucky. I sold something, then got an agent. But it really is surround yourself with people that you like, that they like you, and that you have common interests. Because if you're a group of 5 people and one wants to be an entertainment attorney, one wants to be an actor, one a musician, one a writer, one a comic, whatever, the common element that you guys all share is you all want to make it in showbiz, and you never know who's going to hit. And the first thing you want to do is have your friends near you or help them, because that's what love is all about.
Yeah.
That's what friendship's all about. So that's the thing I stress is find your tribe. Surround yourself with people that dig you, that you dig, that you want to be with, that you want to see ultimately make it. And so that's the secret. And then, of course, you got to be talented, passionate, and put in the hours. When I started writing, Eddie, I treated it like writing, dude, it's the one thing in the world. You don't have to be paid to do it. You can just do it every day. If I want to be a heart surgeon and I'm not working for a hospital, I can't show up at the hospital and go, yo, you got anybody with a weak ticker? I want to come in, cut him up, and fix him up. Yeah. Dude, get out of here. But writing, I woke up every morning, had my coffee, sat at a desk in my little apartment, and I wrote. I did that every day.
Hey, let's pause for a second to talk about Cars.com. Well, Cars.com parking spot is so helpful in not having a battle for a spot. The Cars.com Your Garage feature is probably even better. I love how I can track my car's value and see how much it'll be worth in 2 months. I've been thinking about getting something different, and knowing my car's value is beyond helpful in making that decision. Since KB has the Cars.com parking spot this week, he'll have plenty of extra time to create an account with Cars.com and track their car's value. KB has the most prized parking spot at the Barstool, but we can all grab something very valuable, and that's the insights into our car's value with Cars.com Your Garage feature. The Barstool employee parking garage is frustrating, but Cars.com new feature, Your Garage, is anything but. Track your car's value so you can know exactly what to expect when you're ready to sell. One more time, track your car's value on Cars.com. It's just a good thing to know. You just that simple. Go check it out, see what they're offering you. And if you're looking to upgrade, it's a great spot. I'm telling you, I did it last week, and they did like an instant cash thing. So it was good stuff. So go check that out, Cars.com. And that's just all I mean, that's
do your reps.
Exactly. Just keep going.
It's the great athletes. What do they do?
Yeah, get some shots up.
Get your shots up. Yep. The golfers, what do you do? Get out on the driving range and hit that ball.
Yep. No.
And that's what I tell writers. Just write.
Just keep going.
Again, my first one, I was lucky to sell it because the pitch was so good. My execution sucked. But now, it's like being in the lab, right?
Yeah.
Now I can, knock out really good stuff. I won my first Emmy at 59 years old.
What was that for?
Ghostwriter, a show on Apple Plus.
Okay.
A YA young adult show called Ghostwriter, family show. Really good on Apple, yeah.
I heard Apple's just banging out a bunch of great stuff.
Well, they're not making money on that side of things. They make all their money on that side of things, computers and phones. Yeah. It's like Amazon, too. They're making their money on delivering socks and air mattresses every day around the world.
Yeah.
So they're listen, there's a problem. I know we're all over the place now, but the streaming business, like the movie The Big Short, remember that movie?
Yep.
Real estate market, the housing thing, the bubble burst.
Yep.
That's what happened in the streaming business. The bubble burst. They overproduced, overspent. They're spending 20, 30 million an episode on some of their shows.
But has it burst yet, or?
For them, yeah.
Okay.
Pandemic into the writer's strike. So there was a period where they were not cranking out new quality content. In desperation, everything they did was an spent IP or sequel, all superhero, Marvel universe, all that stuff, and people got tired. So yeah, they're regrouping. lot of restructuring, a lot of mergers and acquisitions. Netflix is the only one that's really stayed afloat.
Stood on its own. Because they don't even want to bundle, last I saw.
Yeah,
They
do their own thing, and everybody else tried to emulate them and follow their model, and it didn't work for others. But everything's cyclical; it'll come back again, And I think the two areas that are lacking right now are good, funny shows.
Yeah.
Like just good, funny sitcoms that we all grew up. My era, whether it was Happy Days and Cheers and Seinfeld and all that, and Friends and, Next Generation, things like Everybody Loves Raymond and Malcolm in the Middle, Everybody Hates Chris. Like those shows aren't being made anymore, but you can't convince me people wouldn't watch them.
Now, is that because I don't want to get into the whole cancel culture thing because that topic has been done forever, but is that more so about money? Because I found it so interesting. Like I think Matt Damon went viral about, from a movie perspective, those comedies that
Vince Vaughn. It was Vince.
Was it Vince Vaughn?
Yeah,
those comedies that you make for like $20 million or whatever, $40 million, they would make a lot of their money off DVDs on the back end, and then that's how they would recoup a lot. Is that kind of what happened on sitcoms too?
So because of all the streaming, all of a sudden, so back in the day, if you had a TV show that did 100 episodes, they would do what's called syndicate it in reruns. It would end up on local stations. It would end up on cable, whatever. And there was so much money made. That market was huge. Shows like Will and Grace and Seinfeld. I mean, the creators of those shows were walking away with, $500 million, $250 million. I mean, they made, with streaming, all of a sudden that syndication market disappeared. They would buy the shows, license them for anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000, and then put them on their streaming platform. So the residuals dried out for the writers. So that wasn't good. But it's interesting because, like, I think it was Netflix realized that, they bought an old 1-hour show called Suits and put it on, and it was their number one show. So the audience was telling them that we love this stuff.
Yeah.
And so now they're doing a sequel, a reboot of Suits, a modern day reboot. And the thing is, Eddie, that just find more new original stories. Do a show behind the scenes of a place like this. People would watch. The point is but they don't. They just want to take a title that already has market value because they feel safe, because executives keep their jobs when they don't take risks or they say no.
Mm-hmm. Well, but then I don't know how they're not looking out there and see things that like A24 and production companies like that are doing, that are getting all this love from the general population. Granted, they're probably not making the biggest margins on everything, but
they'll say, well, A24, they're a niche studio, let them do that. We're gonna embrace superheroes.
But it feels like that bubble's finally burst, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
People they'll take the fifth character from a Guardians of the Galaxy and then all of a sudden give him a movie, or they'll mash up Deadpool with Wolverine and this, that. It's just enough. The audience is going, wait a minute, we want a story that we haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Do
you go to the movies a lot?
Not as much as I used to. I mean, I remember last year, I saw it with Luke, and I think I ended up seeing it 3 times. It was a movie like Air.
Yeah, I liked that a lot.
Loved it.
Yeah, that was my favorite movie last year, actually.
Now, today, again, without Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, who's making that? They're not making it, but and people loved it.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I watched recently a movie that I had seen when it came out, whatever, I forget, 10, 15 years. I'm like Liam, horrible with numbers, or Liam inherited it from me. But I watched it again recently, Silver Linings Playbook, with De Niro and Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper. It was great,
mm-hmm.
And that's why we went to the movies. we wanted to see, and I'll date myself a little bit, but I wanted to sit there and watch something like The Princess Bride, you know, a movie with a story that I haven't seen before. And we need to get back to it, and we will, because if nothing else that, you know, Hollywood has shown us is everything is cyclical and it comes full circle.
Yeah, and I think we kind of are too. Like, I think that movie No Hard Feelings with Jennifer Lawrence last year.
I loved it. Yeah, it was hysterical.
Yeah, exactly. And
she is so funny.
Yeah, and like, you know what? I didn't even love it that much, but I just love the
experience,
the idea of it. Yes, you have an A-list actress who is making a comedy. They took risks. They went for jokes that normally wouldn't have done. She went full frontal, which you would never have gotten like from an A-list actress. The whole experience was like, all right, they fucking were like, let's make a movie.
Right. And the experience of going to a theater, like, some things don't have to change just because Silicon Valley and tech has infiltrated our business, and that's a big part of it, and we could talk about that a little bit too. So, you know, basically decisions are made based on what the algorithm says and not about an executive, like the executives who heard 10 Wishes were emotionally moved and went, here's a story. Now it's all calculated, it's all algorithms, but the experience of just, why does that have to change? Why can't we still go into a movie theater, buy a popcorn, throw our M&Ms or our goobers in it, and watch a movie and leave and be able to go, that wasn't the best thing I ever saw. And then somebody at work goes, oh, I thought it was great. And then we talk about it.
Yeah, no, that's funny because we literally just had that experience recently with that movie Trap, the new M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Oh, how is it?
Mark, it was one of the worst movies, but it was weirdly captivating.
Yeah.
You know, like there was so much wrong with it, but like it got us all talking.
Did you go with Che?
I went with Che,
okay.
yes.
Mr. Movie.
Exactly. Me, Che, and then we immediately, there was a group chat with Jeff D. Lowe and Hubs, and we were all just and Tommy Smoke Girls talking about how bad, but like amazingly like interested we were.
But now the conversations don't happen because everything is, you know, on the internet being streamed. So you may see something and I come to you and go, hey dude, did you see such and such? And you go, not yet. And then you'll get to it 6 months from now. Whereas when a movie is released or a TV show was released weekly with episodes the streaming concept is so flawed, and I've been very vocal about it in interviews and stuff. It's completely flawed. A show like The Bear, shot here in Chicago, I loved it the first 2 seasons. Then there was this giant gap till they got to season 3, and they missed the mark to me badly the first few episodes, and I lost interest. Ozark, I loved Ozark. By the time season 4 came, I forgot the characters, I forgot the story, and I had no reason to find time to binge season 4, and it was a great show.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something that the pandemic really hurt when those shows took those years off. Especially, I don't know if you watched Better Call Saul.
No, but I know it's a good show.
Know, obviously a great show, but like they
Odenkirk's great.
Yeah, Odenkirk's awesome. You know, Chicago guy, so he's a legend to me and everything like that. But you know, they took time off because of that. Then Gilligan made El Camino, and they took time off of that. Then unfortunately he had the heart attack. So it was like,
but it's not even the time off. That's part of it, but it's the idea of being able to watch 8 episodes in one day.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Good and you know, I'm not into Game of Thrones or, you know, House of the Dragons, but I know everybody was upset with the finale of House of the Dragons. I came up in an era of TV where I was doing 22 to 26 episodes a year of a show, right? Not 8 to 10 like they do now with a giant gap. So we knew how to let the season and the stories breathe. Mm-hmm. And we knew how to hit you hard and then take our foot off the pedal and maybe tell a softer story, maybe set something up. Now they come out of the gates, they hit you in episode 1, 2, 3, 4, like hard, and they got nowhere to go. And the showrunners aren't as deft as my generation are at doing long-term storytelling. They blow their load after 4 or 5 episodes, and every time something like, and again, the first few seasons were genius, and I generally don't like to be critical of anybody else's art, but now it's been long enough where enough people have said season 3 was nowhere near as good as season 1 and 2. It's because they just don't slowly tell good stories, and they run out.
And to be honest, though, it's not even mostly their fault. It's also what the audience wants, right? Like how much I believe
what the execs tell them the audience wants.
Yeah, that's what the execs tell them the audience wants, and that's why we're not used to, the slow burn anymore. Now it's like, hey, you got to get them sucked in 3 episodes. You need to get this much elapsed.
But here's the thing: it's not because they care about the audience and they want to entertain them. It's because the first 2 or 3 episodes of every series is what brings in new subscribers. And that's why they want all the bells and whistles fast. So they tell the creators, first 3 episodes, it's all self-serving. It's all about money, and it's all about pleasing their corporate bosses and shareholders in Wall Street.
So if Boy Meets World, Mark and who'd you say?
Well, Michael Jacobs created
Michael Jacobs.
Yeah.
Okay, so if Michael Jacobs met with the exec now, they'd be like, "Hey, we need Corey and Topanga right away. First 3 episodes."
Yeah, they'd just say, "Marry him at 12 years old." We don't have time. We want the wedding when they turn 13. Yeah. Marry him. Again, we were on a network, and network was different because network made their money through the advertisers. Now, even the streamers are going back. There's 2 tiers now at most of these places. You can pay more premium and not have commercials. But if you pay less, let's say $9.99 instead of $14.99, you're going to see ads. So even they are returning to a different model, which is basically cable TV, because they realize they messed up.
Do you think cable is going to come back then? Like, do you predict a return?
I don't know if cable will ever. It's hard to predict the future. I don't know if cable will ever come back, but I do think the streamers will go to a more traditional format of, maybe release a show or 2 per week. And then after they blow their season load, then all episodes are available to stream. So if you don't want to take that ride weekly, you could just binge everything. So I think streamers will adopt a more traditional format.
And is it going to take someone like a disruptor type of person to make this happen? Like
Mark Cuban?
Well, like even like kind of like what Nolan did, right? Like Nolan, like they kind of gave him the keys to do whatever the fuck he wants. Is that like in the cards, like someone like Gilligan, or if he's like, hey, I'll do a show for you, Netflix or Apple, but I want to make it my way.
I mean, there are guys like that, Taylor Sheridan, he kind of does his thing, but even those guys are one-trick ponies. I mean, it's very hard to generate hit after hit after hit because while the talent is there are so many talented people out there. There are so many talented people that me and you haven't heard of, that just haven't had the opportunity to tell their story. And, back in the day, as an example, like, the writers on Seinfeld were all getting huge deals, huge overall deals. If you were on Seinfeld, your agent was getting you a $5 million a year deal for 3 years. Well, they didn't generate any hits or even generate any shows on the air. Some did, but for the most part, no. Well, what was the reality? Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld were writing most of the shows. Larry Charles also was. Steve Scrovan was very active, but there were a lot of writers that just had the credit that were being rewritten by Jerry and Larry. So there's always been flaws. There always will be flaws. But yeah, even. Giving, as you said, the keys to the kingdom, somebody, even though they had a hit, now they may take the car out and crash it because you don't know what the audience is going to love and why and when. I always use this example, Eddie. The casting gods have to be looking down on you when you cast your pilot. Friends. Can you imagine Friends with 6 other people?
No.
But those 6 people came together and they took, it was probably a B script, the pilot. If you looked at the pilot of Friends, maybe a C plus. But you knew if you were in the audience of that taping of that Friends pilot, you knew here's something like lightning in a bottle. So doesn't matter how good the writer is, you have to have everything lined up. The stars have to align.
That's kind of what I had that question here for you. Like how important the cohesion between the joke that you write versus who says it.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. You know, again, the right cast can take mediocre material and make it great. And that's what happened a lot, even on our show. Sometimes we would, you know, turn in a script that maybe wasn't our best. Maybe it was a C. And, you know, by the middle of the run, the cast was so good that they made it great. You know, I did a show, when I left Boy Meets World, I did a show called The Closer that starred Tom Selleck and Ed Asner and David Krumholtz, Penelope Ann Miller, Susie Nakamura, just an amazing cast on CBS. And it didn't matter what you put in Ed Asner's mouth. You know, Lou Grant, you know, Mary Tyler Moore show. He just was one of the best actors to ever appear on TV. So, yeah, it means so much who says it.
So he was just that good. That just
Ed Asner was so good.
Just having the people eat out of the palm of his hand.
Just always.
Is there anyone that you feel that way when you watch, even if maybe you didn't work with them, where you're like that person, like you could tell from just sitting there watching something as a writer being like, that person like really brought the most out of that joke, or can you tell when the writing team is carrying something like that too?
Well, I'll stick in the kids' world, family world, because this was recent. When we did Girl Meets World, I knew the first time I saw her on set that Sabrina Carpenter was going to be a megastar. And I had, you know, she'd let us hear some of her music, but I knew whether it was as an actor or as a pop star, she was going to be mega. And I think she's here in October. She'll be performing at a sold-out United Center. And she was somebody that was that good. There's so many people, you know, it's hard. You know, certainly, as I said, Ed Asner was great. Even, again, for us on Boy Meets World, Will Friedle, who played Eric Matthews, we can give him anything. And he made it gold. You know, and I mean, it's hard to just go him, her. There's so many people that I love. The show with the people, and they're, you know, I turned 64 in a couple of weeks. So I've been doing it a long time and know a lot of people, and have also sadly lost a lot of people. But the two, one who I knew very well and one who I just met a couple times, wanted to write for, but two people that were genius in comedy. The one I knew very well and I got to work with as a comic, but not as a writer, was Norm Macdonald. I think Norm Macdonald is one of the funniest people in the history of the world. So sad that he's not with us anymore. We did stand-up together. He's also from Canada, and we toured a lot in the 80s together.
Did you work on Dirty Work with him?
Did not, no.
I thought maybe being a
no,
guy.
But Dirty Job, was it Dirty Work?
Dirty Work.
Artie Lang was in it.
Yeah.
Saget.
Yeah.
Saget I knew very well.
Farley,
also. Another one that's gone way too soon. And the other one that I wanted to, like, probably my favorite show, if I listed my favorite comedies, Larry Sanders Show. So Gary Shandling was somebody who I thought was a genius and effortless. And you mentioned when we first started talking to define a spec script. So even in TV, you need a spec script. And back in the day, in the late 90s, early 2000s, I wrote a spec Larry Sanders that I knew wasn't to sell because the show was done, but I knew it would be a really good spec script. And I basically wrote what the gang was up to after the show was canceled. So what Artie was doing and what Larry was doing and what everybody was up to. And that script was so well received as a spec sample, it got me a deal at Warner Brothers. So that's what a spec script can do for you also. You don't necessarily sell it, but it can land you deals or stuff like that.
And what they like give you like a 3-year deal, and it's like, hey, Mark, just like start banging away on stuff. Like, let us know.
Yeah. So generally, what they do in TV, at least what they used to do a lot more, is they 2-year deal, give you X amount, and then they put you on a show to pay for some of your deal. Gotcha. So they want you to bang out new stuff, but they also want you to help out on an existing show.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But how does that work though when maybe you don't fit with a show?
They won't put you on something that you don't fit. They'll make sure they put you on a show where your sensibility jives with the creator.
Okay, because did they ever toss you a writer on Boy Meets World? It's like, this is unnecessary.
Well, they would always recommend, but ultimately Michael, myself, and Jeff Manel, another senior writer-producer, we would hire. We had the final say in our staff. So they would sometimes, please take a look. We just signed this writer to a deal, and we think they'd fit with you. We'd meet them. And actually, there were a couple times we'd hire somebody based on, somebody pushing them, and then, unfortunately had to let them go after a season. And that didn't happen too much. But, there were some writers that just didn't fit the vibe of the room. Ultimately, whoever is running the show is the captain of the ship. And so the staff better jive with their personality, their quirks, their flaws, as well as their strengths. Because you're stuck in a room 12 to 16 hours a day sometimes.
Yeah. So what would, like a typical writer's room, like how many people are in one?
So now it's no bueno. And one of the things, we were on strike, last year for about 8 months. And one of the things we were fighting for were minimum amount of writers in a room. Back in, Boy Meets World, we had a staff of anywhere from 12 to 16 writers. When I did Ghostwriter for Apple, we did 26 episodes with a staff of 6.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, again.
Those fingers are fucking typing, huh?
Amazing. Hitting them keys. Again, everything, we were beholden to the bottom dollar more than ever. And the free spending just, they would rather spend, it's funny, they'll spend 10, 15, 20 million on an episode of a show and overpay the cast, etc. But when it comes to the most important element, the damn script, well, the 6 of you can handle it. And of those 6, probably 3 are lower level writers. This is their first or second job. So yeah, it really can become taxing.
And I'm going to guess that they didn't just fold over those 6 people's pay in a writer's room. They didn't double everyone's, right? Or it was just kind of the same rate.
Yeah. In fact, it's less. They don't honor quotes as easily as they used to. So you spend, I've been in WGA, Writers Guild of America, 34 years. I've built, my quote up to, and some places don't honor it anymore. It's just different.
Really? But there is the union, there's a minimum weekly rate, right?
Yeah, there's all the WGA has minimums and stuff, but those of us who have been doing it a long time have earned the right, like athletes, but they certainly don't view us as athletes.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
And so if they come to you, back in the day, it's like, hey, they ordered up 22 more episodes, season 6 of Boy Meets World, 12 people get together. How does it break off? Is it like, Mark, you're handling the pilot, you're handling the opener, like we're going to...
So what we'll do is generally pre-production is about 6 weeks out from first week of filming. And we'll sit in a room and, the seniors, myself and Michael Jacobs, when he was around, he often would leave and go do other shows because he had an overall deal at Disney. And that's when I was running the show in the middle years. You sit down and we go, what are we going to do? Well, on Boy Meets World was always, We gonna break up Corey and Topanga? Yeah. Then they'll get back together? Yeah. What about a ski lodge? And we'll cast somebody like Linda Cardellini, and she'll be the forbidden fruit, and Corey will be, yeah, let's do. So there was, with Boy Meets World, there was certainly, we'd get together and we'd say, how many times can we break them? And I'm joking about that, but literally I remember as a almost tongue-in-cheek joke, but so much reality, like we'd have to go sit down with the network executives at the beginning of every season. And even though they trusted us, they had to do their jobs and tell their bosses, yeah, we spoke to Michael and Mark and they went over the season with us. So we'd go in and they go, okay, what do you have in store for season 4? And jokingly, I remember saying, we're going to break up Corey and Topanga and then put them back together and then break them up again and put them back together. And they would laugh and we go, no, we'll do this. And we'll, we did. Our audience was so freaking loving and loyal that it really allowed us, I'm a huge wrestling fan. I love professional wrestling, which is, one of the reasons why Brandon Walker and I get along so well. We talk wrestles. We love talking wrestling together. We have a lot of friends in common from that world. And I've grew up loving wrestling, Eddie, since I'm 6 years old. And during Boy Meets World, we had this character, Frankie Stacchino, played by Ethan Suplee, and we wanted to meet his family. And in my head, I thought, let's just cast a monster heel wrestler as his dad. And there was an executive at Disney named Mitch Ackerman, who's no longer with us. He was a big wrestling fan also, and he hooked me up with WWE. This guy, WWF at the time, Bruce Pritchard, who's one of their creative execs. We are friends to this day, and Bruce and I talked, and let's get Vader. So he ended up doing 3 or 4 episodes of Boy Meets World. Boy Meets World was so special in so many ways. Our audience let us do this really, really heartfelt, emotional episode called Dangerous Secret, where Sean was protecting a young girl. She was sleeping at his trailer. Corey thought they were hooking up and he was keeping her secret. Her secret was that her dad was beating her. And so we could do an episode like that. And that I still get messages this day from kids who are now adults going, I came from an abusive home, and that episode helped me so much, and it helped me know that it's okay to go to another adult in my family and it's not my fault and all that. So we can do episodes like that, and then I could do an episode with Vader. One of them we filmed at the pond in Anaheim in front of 16,000 people during a live WWF house show. We filmed that episode in front of the wrestling audience. No sitcom has ever been filmed in front of 16,000 people. Talk about a big studio audience.
Yeah, that's huge. So it's cool. You just got to have the perfect mix. It's got to be.
Yeah, and boy, was that. Girl, we did good. Girl, we did 75 episodes over 3 years. We were a big hit for Disney and nominated for 3 Emmys for Best Children's Programming. But Boy Meets World was lightning in a bottle, as I said before, use that expression. That was it. That was everything. Just, there was incredible talent on Girl as well. Roan Blanchard, Sabrina Carpenter, who I mentioned, and, we'd always bring back old Boy Meets World people. But I've been really blessed, Eddie, man. I worked with the Olsen twins. I ran a show called So Little Time when the girls were 16 on Fox Family. And that was wild because at the time, Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen were literally a $1 billion brand. They had a giant corner in every Walmart in the country with bed sheets and dolls and lunchboxes and clothes. They were huge.
You think they'll ever come back to the screen?
No.
No
desire.
Yeah.
No desire. Never say never.
Yeah.
Somebody may, write a big enough check, but, they're happy. They're 2 kids that they were literally put on camera as twins playing one baby on Full House. I mean, they've been on sets the whole time, and they didn't have the easiest, the key, we would hear so many horror stories about young kid actors and growing up in trouble and, we were always very fortunate in that we always knew and you're never 100% certain, but you always know when you're casting kids, you're also casting their family and their home life. And we were very fortunate in, people like Ben Savage and Danielle Fishel, who played Topanga, and Ryder Strong and Will Friedle, and all of it. Their families were amazing.
Yeah.
And so to this day, I talk to them. And Danielle, who we started as a director, Topanga, we started as a director on Girl Meets World. She's my partner on this new pilot we have, and she's going to be directing the pilot. And so I knew these kids at 12, and I know them as adults in their early 40s, and they're amazing kids that come from amazing families. And unfortunately for, people like Mary-Kate and Ashley, they were literally products of show business and their home life. I think their parents had split, and there was some stuff going on, stories that are, I'm sure on Google and stuff, you could find them on the internet, but they had a tough home life.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, if some studio can get a co-starring of them and Macaulay Culkin of something like that's something a lot of people would be interested in.
People love nostalgia.
Oh yeah,
because it makes you feel good.
Oh yeah,
it's warm and fuzzy while the world is like falling to fucking crumbs out there.
Yeah, I didn't know who the fuck was running for president when I was a kid.
Right.
Like I knew their names, but I didn't know anything about their politics really.
Well, because again, it's social media.
Yeah, everything's
in front of us. We know the top 10 stories every day, whether we want to read them or not.
Yeah,
they're on our timeline.
Yeah, you're right. I have, we could go on for 4 hours. I have so many questions for you, but we'll wrap with this one that I'm sure you get every time you do an interview. But is Boy Meets World, is this it, or could you see a world where you guys do something else with it?
I would say, ultimately Disney owns the property, and Michael Jacobs as the original creator. I think doing Girl Meets World, to do a third. But again, you can never say never, Eddie. Listen, to see, Corey and Topanga as grandparents one day,
that'd be
be pretty dope. But I never get tired of talking about Boy Meets World ever.
That's awesome.
And those who don't want to talk about something they did in their career, I think shame's on them, because you were afforded incredible blessings and accolades and finances based on something, and to turn your back and not want to talk about it. I get that some actors maybe get sick of it, but I know the people that I've mentioned they'll talk about it forever with fans, because they realize it was a blessing, and you can go an entire career without coming close to it.
Yeah, totally. Well, thanks, Mark.
This was great.
Yeah, I appreciated you coming on. This was a fun conversation.
For sure. Anytime, man.
Yeah, we'll next time you're back, we'll definitely run it back. Is there any show coming up or anything you want people to look out for?
I mean, certainly Ghost Rider is still streaming on Apple Plus, and you can watch Boy and Girl Meets World, get into old episodes, nostalgia, feel good on Disney Plus. And then I have a new show, which until it's announced, I'm really not supposed to talk about, but it's the one with Danielle as my partner, and I'm writing it with two young writers, Miles Warden and Capri Sampson, and it's kind of a Boy Meets World, Girl Meets World hybrid. Oh. It's a 12-year-old girl, 12-year-old boy who become best friends. She's a middle school influencer, and it's called, I can't even say what it's called, but that probably 8 months away, and then I'm directing Dare to Dream, which is a really cool baseball movie.
Cool.
In the fall. But yeah, that's it. And then, follow at Blutman 27 here at Barstool, and follow at Luke MB 3342. He's got to work on that handle.
Yeah, he does.
Maybe
there you
time
go.
to change it. But to the Barstool stoolies out there, I'd be remiss if I didn't end this by saying that as a parent, me and their mother, Kristen, who were still really good friends, because you don't have to live together to be together as a family. So we're still very close, even though, we've been split for 12 years. But we were talking this morning how blessed we are that the Stoolie universe are so cool with Liam and Luke, and as well as all the people that work here. And so, as a parent, forever grateful to the Barstool universe.
Awesome. Love it. Put the dad hat back on for the end. That respect.
For sure.
I like that. Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
Peace.
All right. That's it, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll be back on Monday. We'll see you then.